Hello, this is Andrew with Mammillion.bike. I've heard it said that a broken collarbone is the second most common injury for cyclists. So while I would have preferred not to be able to speak from a position of experience on this topic, I thought it would be interesting to document how it went for me with the intent of providing a realistic roadmap for those who are curious, like I was after I broke my collarbone, around key points like how long will I be off the bike, how will it impact my fitness, and when can I expect things to be back to normal. Before digging in, I should say out loud that what I'm going to talk about is fairly personal. If you're uncomfortable with that kind of thing, and for what it's worth, it makes me a little uncomfortable too, but I think the value in laying it out has enough potential to help, particularly around mindset or keeping a positive mindset, that it's worth it. Because when I was in the midst of it, it was really depressing. I'm not going to show any post-surgery scar photos or anything like that, although they are kind of cool in an academic sort of way. So the personal stuff is more like my data kind of stuff and less like gross stuff. So let's start with the basic timeline. On May 7th, I crashed during a race and I broke my right collarbone. About a week later, on May 13th, I had surgery to put it back together again. I'm going to throw a before-after x-ray image up on the screen here. Feel free to pause or skip it if you want. Technically, the surgery was optional. I could have let it ride and hope for the best. But the more I researched it and talked to my orthopedist, it seemed like this was the best way to approach the issue given the chance of non-union or malunion. Aside from the first day after surgery, when I was not in a great place, I have never doubted that it was the right decision with the smallest amount of pain, suffering, and downtime. I don't say that in any way as medical advice. I am in no way qualified to provide medical advice. Just that given the mess that was my collarbone, which you can see here, I'm confident that it was the right answer in my situation for a lot of reasons. Now let's get into some numbers. Starting with resting heart rate, because it's a great way to get a good snapshot of where your body is from a recovery and health perspective. Resting heart rate is best viewed as a trend, so here's the trend. Pre-injury, I was rocking a 43 beats per minute average pretty consistently for months. Then it shot upwards to 49 beats per minute on average. And then about 5 weeks later, it got back to normal. Digging into that week with the 49 average, it was highly skewed by one night of low resting heart rate. Maybe I took the opiates a little earlier or later. I don't know. Most of the days were in the 50 to 51 beats per minute range, which for me is crazy. I don't see those kind of numbers post-race. I don't see those kind of numbers when I'm sick. I don't see those kind of numbers after a bender, although my benders are pretty lame. That concerned me while I was going through it. It shouldn't have. I was sleeping poorly. I was really uncomfortable. Clearly, I just needed to give it time and let my body heal. As concerning as that number trend was, it did not bother me as much as the loss of fitness. This graph from intervals.icu does a great job of visualizing the decline. The most important number to look at here is the 68 for fitness level pre-crash and the slope downwards afterward. Obviously, they don't know why my training load went down, so the fitness decline probably isn't as great as it should have been. But you can see where it picked up and then flattened as I started riding again. The concerning parts are the red dips in form along the bottom here, where as I added load, I was quickly hitting a wall. If you followed me on Strava during this time, you would have seen that there were way too many of the I cracked kind of workouts as I would try to find the right training number. Pre-crash, I was training at a threshold power of 315 watts. As I started getting back into it, I had to adjust that number down and down and down. And it wasn't until I got lower than the number that Zert told me was right that I could do the workouts without cracking on the more challenging ones or seeing unhealthy heart rate to power zone alignment on the easy ones. This was definitely the most depressing artifact. Training 20 watts down might not seem like that big of a deal, but when you put it in the context of the time it took to move the number from 290 to 315 watts the first time, I was looking at a loss of about 18 months worth of fitness gain. Conceptually, I knew, and people told me, that it would come back. But it was really difficult in the moment to keep that perspective. Fortunately, it mostly has, but I'm still not quite there yet. Some of this is probably because I'm trying to get ready for Gravel World, so my focus, once I got to okay, has been more on push tempo than trying to pull the threshold power up with anaerobic work. Garmin's VO2 max estimate also took a big hit. May 6th, with the day before the race, it said 68. At the bottom of the fitness slide, it hit 62. Admittedly, this is still a good number for someone my age, but here again, in the context of how long it took to get to that point, really, really depressing. And I still haven't fixed this. Some of that is normal, at least for me. I often see a slightly downward trend this time of year as I do more long endurance rides outside, where my heart rate is elevated due to dehydration and the humid heat here around Chicago. For those who don't know how Garmin does the VO2 max estimate, it's essentially a function of power and heart rate. So things that artificially elevate your heart rate necessarily lead to a decline in the VO2 max that it guesses. So what's the TLDR, or maybe the TLDL around those numbers? Fitness took a huge hit initially. Most of it came back fairly quickly. I probably hit bottom about 2 weeks post-surgery and started crawling upwards slowly after that. It's possible that if I'd been a bit more realistic about the fitness loss, I might have been able to shave a small amount of time off of that. But I did start back up fairly slowly, so I can't say that with confidence. Getting the cutting edge back to where it was has taken a lot longer, and I'm not entirely confident I'm there yet. I was off the bike for 10 days total. 4 of that was post-surgery. Started slowly, tried to feel out how bad it was, and after cracking and more cracking and then some more, adjusted the training number down till I found something that worked. As things improved, I would bump the threshold power number up and try again, and then ratchet up intensity and volume. You know, basic progressive overload stuff, although with one key difference. I incorporated way more recovery into the plan than I normally would need to. Part of that is that it just felt right. And part of that is I was seeing strain in my resting heart rate and the data on intervals.ICU, which indicated a need for more recovery. I've said this multiple times on the site when I talk about training. I think it's critical to pay attention to your biometric data. How are you sleeping? What's your resting heart rate? If you have access to HRV data, use it. And if you have a Garmin watch, things like body battery are really interesting for that. There are competing concepts on other platforms as well. They tell you objectively how you're doing. Paying attention to that is really important, in my opinion. None of that work would have been possible without a smart trainer. So another key win for having the ability to train inside. Pre-op, the orthopedist told me not to expect to ride outside for 6 weeks. Post-op, given the healing progression, I got clearance to get out there after 5. Probably because I was pushing for permission to do the horribly hilly hundreds. And there was no way I was going to get the green light from my wife without at least an amber from the doctor. I cheated a little bit, don't tell anyone. And I rode a few days before 5 weeks, on the 16th, to make sure that I could take the road chatter and that I remembered how to ride a bike before taking a bite of horrible hilly. 2 days later, I did horrible hilly hundreds. 5 weeks post-surgery, 6 from the crash. Mentally, it felt awesome, but the shoulder was not in agreement with that. After about an hour, I couldn't spend any real time out of the saddle without cramping, locking, or incredible fatigue in the shoulder muscles. So I did most of the ride sitting down. Fortunately, once I got off the bike at the end, all of that went away and the shoulder stopped telling me that I was an idiot. It took another 2 weeks before I really started feeling normal from both a comfort and fitness perspective. And 4 weeks after that, intervals.ICU indicated a fitness level greater than what it was pre-crash. So about 12 weeks total. So far, we've been focused on the impact of biking, which is the main thing I care about. And since you're here, I'm guessing you as well. But that's not to say that everything is back to normal in a broader context. Although I started being able to sleep on my right side about 2 weeks ago, which is fantastic. The shoulder still feels weird, slightly numb, probably due to the nerve damage from the surgery. Hopefully that comes back, but it's not a massive concern to me. I do get some pinching and discomfort when I raise my arm over my head like this, mostly where the plate protrudes from the clavicle near the neck, and a little bit on the other side where it sticks out as well. Heavy backpacks are out for now, even when on both shoulders. It's just too uncomfortable. But a hydration pack is fine though. Long term, I was told that I might have to have the plate removed to fix the backpack thing. I'll just have to see how that goes. It is kind of neat to be able to see the screw heads along the collarbone when I bring up my shoulder. It's a great party trick, really popular with the ladies. And by ladies, I mean my wife and daughter. It's usually good for a solid ooh. I got the go-ahead to start deadlifting a couple weeks ago. Progress has been really slow, with the muscles in my lower back being the main limiter, but also the forearm strength to grip the bar with any real weight. Progress has also been slow for building the arm and shoulder strength and stability to do pull-ups. Right now, just putting in the time to work on the grip and build up the fitness with hangs and a few negatives. I'm not allowed to do push-ups yet. I have an appointment next week where I hope to get the all clear for that, which I'm really looking forward to because that's the main way I do core work. Obviously, super important for the bike and I guess general health too. Wrapping up, if I had to nutshell everything, I would say it's important to keep a long-term perspective. I wish that I had done better at that. Although it's a lot easier for me to say that out loud now than to do it when I was really uncomfortable and observing a depressing decline in the numbers that I had worked so hard to improve. You will get it back. Take it slow. Use progressive overload. Don't overdo it. And when you do overdo it, because you're an idiot like me, focus on recovery. You'll get it back. I hope you thought that was useful. If you did, go ahead and like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below, and I will get to them as soon as I can. Thanks.